Two powers, one born from revolution, the other from reform, one guided by freedom, the other by unity. For over a century, the United States and China have stood face to face, shaping the destiny of our planet. This is the story of a 100-year rivalry, of ambition, ideology, and global power. In 1900, China was weak, carved up by imperial powers. The US, by contrast, was young, industrial, and rising fast, looking west across the Pacific. When the Qing dynasty fell in 1911, China was reborn as a republic, but the dream of unity faded quickly. Warlords ruled provinces, foreigners dominated trade. Then came World War II. China and America, on sea they stand, became allies against Japan. American planes supplied Chinese troops, and millions of Chinese fought to defend their homeland. But beneath this alliance, two forces prepared to collide: Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists versus Mao Zedong's communists. In 1949, the communists won. Mao declared the People's Republic of China. The nationalists fled to Taiwan, protected by the US Navy. The world had split in two. The new China sided with the Soviet Union. The US refused to recognize it. Each saw the other as a threat to the world order. The Korean War sealed their hostility. Tens of thousands died. For decades, the Pacific became a wall of suspicion. Inside China, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, an economic revolution that ended in famine and tragedy. The Cultural Revolution followed chaos, persecution, and isolation. The US watched, certain China would collapse, but history had other plans. In 1972, President Richard Nixon made a bold move. He became the first US leader to visit communist China, breaking 2 decades of silence. This meeting changed everything. It split the communist world in two and opened China to the West. Under Deng Xiaoping, China began to reform. Markets opened. Factories roared to life, and American companies rushed in, eager for cheap labor and vast opportunity. But when Tiananmen Square filled with students in 1989, calling for democracy, the illusion shattered. The message was clear. China would embrace capitalism, but not democracy. The 1990s crowned America as the world's only superpower. But while Washington looked to Europe and the Middle East, Beijing looked to the future. China's reforms transformed the nation. Hundreds of millions lifted out of poverty. Factories became the heartbeat of global trade. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization. Western corporations thrived on cheap manufacturing, but dependency grew, a silent shift of power. The world watched as China showcased its strength. It was no longer a sleeping dragon. It was awake. A new battlefield emerged. Not on land or sea, but in technology. China launched the Made in China 2025 plan, aiming to dominate robotics, AI, and 5G. American tech relied on Chinese factories, even as Washington grew alarmed by China's rise. Trade wars erupted. Tariffs, sanctions, and accusations of espionage filled headlines. The rivalry had gone digital, a war for data, chips, and influence. Freedom versus control, innovation versus discipline. Then, the world stopped. The COVID-19 pandemic began in Wuhan, spreading across every border. The US blamed China for the outbreak. China accused America of propaganda. Trust collapsed. But even amid crisis, the race for power accelerated. China expanded its global influence through the Belt and Road Initiative, ports, railways, and highways stretching across continents. To Beijing, it was cooperation. To Washington, it looked like dominance. Meanwhile, US warships sailed the South China Sea, defending Taiwan and freedom of navigation. Chinese jets flew close to Taiwan's borders in return. Every move, a message. Every maneuver, a test. And yet, despite all tension, their economies remain intertwined. The smartphone in your hand, the laptop on your desk. Both are symbols of this paradox. The world's strongest rivals are also its most essential partners. Now, a new chapter begins. America leads in innovation, alliances, and ideals. China leads in scale, discipline, and strategy. The next race isn't for territory. It's for technology, resources, and the human mind. Quantum computing, space mining, artificial intelligence. Each breakthrough could decide the balance of power. But here lies the paradox of the century. Neither can truly win unless they learn to coexist, because global crises, climate change, pandemics, and cyber warfare demand unity, not rivalry. A century ago, the US and China stared at each other across the Pacific. Strangers, divided by distance and ideology. Today, they face each other across the same ocean, bound by trade, technology, and destiny. The story of the next 100 years remains unwritten. Will it be a tale of confrontation or collaboration? Only time and the choices of both nations will decide.